It's Thursday, June 20th, 2019. This is the Hermetic Hour, and I'm your host, Poke Runyon. And tonight we present a report on the modern versions of the 6th and 7th degree initiations of the 18th century crata Repoa. Now, this system was originally intended to replicate an ancient Alexandrian mystery school initiatory program. Manly Hall called it Egyptian Freemasonry. It was created by a committee of German Masonic scholars who accessed the classical pagan works of Iamblichus, Porphyry, Diodorus, Plutarch, and others to create an outline for a system of 7 degrees intended to convey the secrets of ancient Hermetic magic to initiates. But it was far from complete. It was an outline. It declared what was to be taught without providing the actual lessons. When we adopted it as an initiatory structure in 1970, we began to update it with additional source material extending from classical times through the Dark Ages, through medieval times, the Renaissance, and the Rosicrucian era. We made the crata Repoa the repository of the Western esoteric tradition, from King Solomon to the Holy Grail to Christian Rosenkreuz. We have discussed the degrees from Pastophorus through Alchemia on previous podcasts. So tonight, we will put the cap on it, the 4-cornered red cap, with the final chivalric degrees, the 6th, astronomus at the gate of the gods, and the 7th, propheta, one who knows the mysteries. So, stay with us and we'll tell you how the modern crata Repoa culminates. Now, even though we are not going to spend too much time discussing the first 5 degrees, we should very briefly go over them in order to put the final degrees in perspective. Crata Repoa begins with Pastophorus, which is outlined as the neophyte degree, when the candidate is introduced to the system and becomes the keeper of the pillars. We use Pastophorus to introduce and explain our reconstruction of the ancient Canaanite seasonal ceremonies from the days of Melchizedek, the alchemy of the sacred year, and the beginning of the Holy Grail cycle, which, according to the Nicaean document, began with the death of the year king or vegetation god in ancient Canaan back in the days of Melchizedek. Now, we use a poem called The Cult of the Sangreal as a prologue to this degree. It describes the entire cycle, from Baal and Astarte through King Solomon and his spirits, through the round table of the Holy Grail to Jesus and Mary Magdalene and the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. In the 2nd degree, Neochorus, we reveal King Solomon's art of goetic theurgy, revealing that Baal and Astarte were transformed into demons by Eel and Astaroth. In Melanophorus, the 3rd degree, the initiate does his or her 3-day holy guardian angel retreat, in which 3 angels are summoned. Abramelin was wrong. There are 3 HGAs, according to Hermes, Agrippa, and the Lemegeton. 2 astrological that you are born with, and 1 that is your link to God above the zodiac. This is one of the secrets you will not find in any other magical system. In Christophorus, the 4th degree, the initiate is tested and symbolically martyred and enters the celestial vault, where he or she receives the ancient initiatic code. Much of this derives from Macrobius and the Orphic hymns and the ancient Mithriatic ritual. The classical pagan symbolism of the Rose Cross is delineated. A symbolic owl was awarded to the initiates, and the Illuminati took the owl from the original crata Repoa. We award the owl, and you can pin it on your 7th degree cap. In the fifth degree, the secrets of alchemy are revealed, and we dramatically reenact the casting of the brazen sea and the story of Solomon, Hiram, and the Queen of Sheba, and the mystery of King Solomon's magic ring. All of these first 5 degrees follow the course laid out in the Nicene document, leading us to the 6th degree, Astronomus of the Gate of the Gods. This is the first of what we call the chivalric or Holy Grail degrees. Before the initiate can re-enter the celestial vault to receive the secrets of the great celestial tablets we call the Summa Sophia and the other heavenly secrets, he or she must become a knight or a dame of the Round Table, which is the zodiac in magical symbolism, and reconnect with his or her astrological and planetary guardian angels, as seen in the Grailstone. This process is set forth in Wolfram von Essenbach's Parsifal, which is a holy book of hermetic secrets and connects our tradition with the Holy Grail. And after the knight or dame makes contact, he or she is conducted into the celestial vault and given the secret of making kameas for the outer planets. That's with our 11-sphere tree of life. The labors of Hercules, which, if understood, are the key to recovering past and future lifetimes. And finally, the Summa Sophia, celestial entablature, which can transform constellations into magical formulas and project them onto the earth, and can become a map for voyaging anywhere in the universe with our soul travel boat. For, as Hermes tells us, we can venture anywhere in the universe at the speed of thought. In the final 7th degree, called Propheta, or Saphe Na Penka, one who knows the mysteries, the knight or dame returns to the Round Table to assume what in Arthurian legend was called the Siege Perilous, a chair which only a perfect knight dared to take. In this case, to make contact with the highest guardian angel, the Holy Spirit that stays with us through all our incarnations, our link to God and Goddess. When this was accomplished, he or she was shown all the sacred objects of the temple, and once again conducted to the vault where the secrets of the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz are revealed, and he or she is introduced to the yoga of the sacred marriage, wherein Jesus and Mary Magdalene visit all the spheres of the microcosmic Adam and Eve, consummating the sacred marriage in Tiphereth, and going on up to Hesed, where they enter the Garden of Eden and again make love, allowing the initiates to identify and thus create their own magical child. In the 7th degree, the initiate is allowed to read all the sacred books. He was given a special cross and a 4-cornered hat. We award both. The special cross is called the 8 Wings of El, and has 8 permutations of the original Tetragrammaton, Shamata, which can be chanted to achieve a state of grace. These crosses are cast in pewter and were designed by Fabian from Sancho Neapo's Theology of the Phoenicians and rendered in pewter and silver by very honored Frater Sithmac. Well, that's a review of the degrees, but perhaps the most important information we can give you about the modern crata Repoa reformado is a bibliography of the sources. These are the books and documents that we used to fill out the 18th century outline and bring the system up to date so that it would be a complete initiation into the Western esoteric tradition. Well, let's start with the History and Practice of Magic by Paul Christian, 1860, which was republished in English in 1963. And then I'd like to mention the Saragossa manuscript by Jan Patočky, which was first published around 1850, and and reissued in English in 1965. And this is primarily where I got the idea of mirror magic from the Saragossa manuscript. And then The Black Arts by Richard Cavendish, 1965, which is a survey of ceremonial magic. And the important thing about The Black Arts is that Richard Cavendish frankly said that Baal and Astarte were the Goetic demons Baal and Ashtaroth, and that was a revelation to me, and that's when I went and found out how to conjure them to visible appearance. And then, of course, there's the Goetia of Megaton, Mathers and Crowley, 1904, and that's the rituals that I used based on what Richard Cavendish had said about Baal and Ashtaroth to conjure both Baal and Astarte to visible appearance. And then the key to the whole Holy Grail cycle, From Ritual to Romance, Jesse Weston, 1920. Now, this book was tremendously important. It was recommended to me by my master, Frederick Adams, and he knew that I was very interested in ancient Canaan, and he knew that Jessie Weston had based her idea that the Holy Grail began. The mystery of the Holy Grail began in ancient Canaan about 1500 BC with the blood of the flowing down the river Adonis from the slaying of the dying god, and that was where the whole Grail legend got started, according to her. She got this idea from an Essayine document, which in her case was summarized in Christ's Greatest Hermes by G.R.S. Mead, but he got it from the writings of Hippolytus, which was published in 1898, and an Essayine document is a Gnostic, a Christian Gnostic, Valentinian Gnostic treatise that links the pagan dying gods and resurrecting goddesses all the way from Isis and Osiris, Baal and Astarte, Venus and Adonis, all the way up to Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And it's called an Essayine document. And the only reason we have it is that the Christian father Hippolytus tried to discredit it, and otherwise we wouldn't even know about it. Now, next we should mention the Rashomra tablets from Ugarit by various authors and editors in the 1960s. And nobody knew what the ancient Canaanite rituals back in Melchizedek's time were like until the 1930s, when they dug up this library at Ugarit on the coast of Syria. It was ancient Canaanite documents with the story of Baal and Astarte and various other Canaanite epics, so that the Rashomra tablets from Ugarit, and in these tablets it says that Baal had a goblet to awe mortal man, and now much of this is confirmed in The Golden Bough by James Fraser, and that was 1900. That was actually 1890. But I used the New Golden Bough which is edited by Theodore Gaster, and now confirming some of this is a book called The Hebrew Goddess by Raphael Paty. Now, one of this is a book which suggests that Jehovah had a wife, and suggests that she was Astarte. But actually, Peti is in error because this wasn't Jehovah. This was the original Canaanite god El. Jehovah was a usurper. Now, then the history and practice of magic by Paul Christian. I mentioned that earlier. I had run across that way back before I founded the OT. That's why I knew about it. And in that book is the initiation of the pyramids, which is a 1-degree synthesis of crata Repoa that the French came up with in the 1850s. And we used this first. Well, this was our first initiation, which eventually, when we found the whole crata Repoa, which we found in Freemasonry of the Egyptians by Manly Hall in 1934, we used Paul Christian's 1-degree synthesis of crata Repoa as our first initiation, and after that we moved it to the 2nd degree Neochorus once we found the whole crata Repoa. Freemasonry of the Egyptians, Manly Hall, 1934. That was the whole crata Repoa, which Manly Hall got from John Yarker. And following that, Hermetic Sources of the Parseval, Kahane and Kahane, 1965. This is a very important book, and followed immediately by Parseval by Wolfram von Essenbach, 1180, 1965. Now, I can't stress too much the importance of Parseval. It is a treasure trove of Hermetic secrets and Hermetic wisdom, and Kahane and Kahane, husband and wife team, who did the book on Hermetic Sources of the Parseval, which, by the way, is ferociously expensive now if you can find it, but they proved that the Parseval is Hermetic, and that the Grail was considered to be a stone that fell from the stars. It wasn't a cup according to them. It was a stone that fell from the stars, and this book is just filled with secrets, and they trace it. Parseval has a half brother who if you read it without the commentary, you think this half brother of his is an Arab. No, he's not an Arab. He's a Sabaean. He's a Haranian Sabaean, and the Haranian Sabaeans were Hermetic. They were not Muslims, and this is one of the secrets in the Parseval that Kahane and Kahane. Well, they don't exactly reveal it. You have to kind of figure it out, but it's certainly obvious. Now then, the Mithriatic ritual. This was an ascension. This was a Hermetic. They called it Mithriatic, but actually it was Hermetic. It was an ascension up the heavenly spheres into the realm of the fixed stars. And about 100 AD, it was part of that Alexandrian mystery school, and we used that in the Chisephorus initiation to get people up into the vault. Now, the initiatic code in the vault, the zodiac, the cyclogram in the vault, which is based on that original circle of the beasts in the temple of Tyre that Hiram, king of Tyre, had, that Alexander the Great destroyed when he opened the age of Aries. Now, commentary on the dream of Scipio Macrobius, 250 AD, and that was published in 1968. Now, Macrobius was a pagan, and he wrote this around in the second century, and this is a book that we like to say would have been would have been in Merlin's library. This is a book about the initiatic code, about the souls going up the Milky Way and going around the zodiac. And then following that, the Orphic hymns translated by Thomas Taylor back in the 1880s. But they are from around 300 BC, and the Orphic hymns form hymns to the planets, and the gods of the planets, and Mars and Venus, and all of them, and they're wonderful. And we adopted them, especially for the Chista Forest degree, and Christopher Warnock followed suit on that, and so you can find them in his planetary his planetary hymns book. Okay, Instructions to the Orphic Adept, Robert Graves. This is a poem that epitomizes all of this Orphic, the Orphic hymns and the Dravasipia and whatever. It epitomizes it, and it's from the collected poems of Robert Graves. Now, the Nag Hammadi Library, and this is especially the Gospel of Philip and the Gospel of Mary in the Nag Hammadi Library. And as I'm sure you're all aware, the Nag Hammadi Library is Christian Gnostic documents that were dug up found around 1948 in Egypt and translated. They finally got translated around and published around 1977. But the Gospel of Philip is it's the Valentinian sacred marriage, Valentinian Christian. This is the key to one of the keys to the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz is the Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel of Mary is Mary Magdalene teaching the disciples Jesus' yoga system. And this is amazing. She teaches them how to ascend the psychic centers, and these gospels are both in the Nag Hammadi Library. And so then let's look at Awakening to Divine Wisdom, Johann Gichtel, 1700, and that was published in 2004. And Gichtel. Johann Gichtel was a follower of Jacob Boehm, and Jacob Boehm came up with this idea of the Western psychic center system, which is a middle pillar, and it's different than the Eastern system, and that unfortunately the Golden Dawn is stuck with the Eastern chakra system, and the Western chakra system places, for instance, the moon in the genitals rather than Mars, which the Eastern system goes for Mars. Well, Mars is a male. That the idea is that Mars is a kind of a male energy, and they want to put that in the genitals because they these people were always patriarchal. And one of the things that Jacob Boehm, he believed that women were more spiritual than men, and he was perfectly happy with the idea of the Queen of Heaven, Nuit, the star goddess, but Gichtel, on the other hand, his follower, was exactly the opposite, but at least Jacob Boehm had the idea of a balance. All right, let's follow this with King Jesus by Robert Graves, 1946. Robert Graves wrote this novel, King Jesus, and published it in 1946. And what he revealed in this novel, and of course, Robert Graves was the poet laureate of the British Empire, and while he was alive, and an incredible mythologian and genius. But what he revealed was in this was that Jesus was actually the grandson of Herod the Great. So he really was the king of the Jews. And now there's one little problem, though, with Graves, though. He didn't realize that Jesus was actually very, very he wasn't exactly a feminist, but he was very much aware of the idea that women were just as important spiritually as men, and Jesus supported the equal respect for women, and Graves did not realize this because, and the reason why he didn't was because very shortly after Jesus died, the Christianity had a brief period in which women were equal, but then that very quickly got squelched by the Catholic Church, who wanted to be just as patriarchal as the old Judeans, and so Graves kind of picked up on that. So King Jesus, and you don't have Jesus being sympathetic, or you don't even have him marrying Mary Magdalene. However, the idea that he was the grandson of Herod the Great, that turned out to be true, and that was followed up in 2012 by the Herodian Messiah by Joseph Raymond, which confirms that Graves was right about Jesus actually being. Now, Jesus, however, even though he was Jewish, he was raised in Galilee, which meant that he was not a Yahwehist. He wasn't a Loist, and this is very, very well brought out in Jesus the Phoenician by our friend Karim El-Kousa, 2013. This is a book that you really should read. And then, following this, let's talk about the Lost Gospel. That was Wilson and Jakubowicz in 2014. But this was a Valentinian Christian document called Joseph and Asenath, and what it was a version of the Hebrew patriarch Joseph and his Egyptian wife Asenath, but it was really used as an allegory of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and they used Joseph and Asenath sort of as a template, for this allegory. But it's a very important document, and Wilson and Jakubowicz did a popular version of it, but in 2013, the year before they published their popular version, it came out in a scholarly work called New Testament Pseudographia, Volume 2, and which is more complete. And there's a lot of things about this that are very important. One is that the honey sacrament, which we use both in the crata Repoa and in our version of the Holy Grail, are both in there, and so the chemical wedding is very definitely backed up in this. And then, of course, there's the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz by Valentine Andrea, 1616. With Adam McLean and Jocelyn Godwin, 1984, and that is the original Rosicrucian document. Now, as Kennedy used to say, let me say this about that. We managed to discover, in analyzing the chemical wedding, we managed to discover how it actually was structured. And I'm not going to mention it now, because I think we have mentioned it before. And so we figured out how astrologically how it was structured, and we culminated
the 7th degree initiation with our yoga of Jesus and Mary Magdalene having their sacred marriage in Tiphereth and going up through all the spheres and establishing the angels, still leaving the pagan gods in the spheres, and establishing the angels and the spirits of the spheres as they go up. So this is these are the sources. These are all the sources that we used in bringing the crata Repoa, which was originally just supposed to replicate an Alexandrian, classical pagan Alexandrian mystery school, but we wanted, using it using it today, we wanted to bring it up and have it serve as an initiatory structure for the entire Western tradition, all the way from ancient Alexandria all the way up through the Rosicrucians. So that's what we've done. Now, what I would like to do, if we have time to do it, is read to you the poem Cult of the Sangreal, which we published in 1975, which has become the prologue for the Pastophorus initiation. And even in 1975, we laid all this out. And as you'll see as we read the poem, that we laid this whole sequence out following the Nicene document. So let's go back to the old seventh ray. The old seventh ray, 1970. I wish I could show you the artwork, surrounding this. And this is what we read as a prologue to the whole modern crata Repoa.
It was writ on tablets of ancient Ugarit, in the days of Melchizedek, of a golden goblet of the gods, brimming with life's liquor upon the high place. In the time when Abram made souls in the far land of the star kings, even in the dreaming temples of Haran. To Chem did he journey, and thence to Canaan, where the Zadik, who was the high priest of El, creator of all created in the womb of Asherat, even he who was king in Salem, did give old Abram to drink of the dew of heaven, and eat of the cakes of light. His dispensation, and how soon his sons forgot their gift from the Mount of Armageddon. And yet King David sang the mystery of wand and cup. And Hiram, priest king of pagan Tyre, did he not rejoice in the building of the Temple of Solomon, in the lusty embrace of the cherubim, sun-gold symbol of mighty emanations, begetting prince and princess, upon the mother of the sea, lords of fire and water, air and earth, the very tetragrammaton? Was not Solomon called a wise and even wizard king, who did confine the 72 rebellious spirits in the vessel of brass, metal of the sphere mercurial, with mastery of brazen shield and sword of iron? Did he not call them to appear in the triangle of his art, led by the first of their number, Lord Cloudrider, whereupon Solomon did build a temple to his consort, the fair Astarte? Her prince, the very dying god, born from the myrrh tree, whose funerary resin invoked the planet of resurrection. From sacred Aphaka, high in the Lebanon, his yearly blood reddens the river Adonis and stains the Meron Turnum even to this day, when from summer solstice to autumn equinox, he lies entombed in the back of beyond, awaiting the nectar of life, sparkling in her chalice, spiraling down through the 7 gates of 7 worlds, borne by the dancing maiden, the eternal princess of the Grail. Not a cup of wine, blood of death, in mournful memory of a pale lord returning, not till earth herself lies doomed under a wormwood star, but a cup of mead, sunborn honeydew of heaven, the very Zra of Macroprosopis, for a green and horned prince of thunder, and his winsome vernal bride. Now these same Tyrian mysteries traveled thence to Egypt to the Ptolemies, even to learned Alexandria, where thrice greatest Hermes did declare in his Pomander that he had caused to descend earthward a great chalice, a prize for the souls, thirsting after wisdom, the only gnosis of immortality. Is it not true that the Urgic masters from far Haran, heirs to those ancients who passed the Golem's secret to venerable Father Abram, those who yet worship the 7 wanderers of the starry vault, Sabaean wizard lords of zodiac and magic, who were sages to the caliphs of Islam, did honor Hermes Trismegistus as prophet, and preserve his teachings with their own arcanum at the courts of Moorish Spain in the years of the Holy Kabbalah, by the word of she who blackens. Did not those same Sabaean magi entrust their key to the knights and ladies of Montsalvat, companions of the Sangreal and Lost Languedoc in the bygone days of the troubadours? And was it not written in the Parzival that in the season of Saturn, the wounded Amfortas did lie in cruelest agony, the land laid waste and barren about his castle, the ancient curse of boat, demanding of the hero a forbidden question? For it was written elsewhere of the Grail in those times that its secret would be shocking to the pious, to those self-doomed to lie in earth, prisoned in their moldering husks till judgment day, melancholy spirits, drugged even beyond the grave on sacraments of death. If darkness be the everlasting chalice of light, why then do we fear death as an ending? Rather should we respect it as a voyage beyond, perhaps to service at the circle round. And if therefore the call sounds clear in thine heart, inflaming the diamond of thine own rose-rayed star, know then that thou art of the twice born, and the great work lies before thee. Initiation is but an awakening and a coming home. The secret of the Grail is in the fourfold nature of the work, fourfold within as without, and in subtle realms beyond. Man, even as God, writes with the wand and emblazons with the sword, letters and symbols in a spectrum of fire. Woman, like unto goddess, nurtures the glyphs in her cup, giving them substance from her pentacle, the ineffable vowels. And yet there is that in man which is womanly, and that in woman which is manly. Hence, all tasks of the word should be thine in works of the art. Who enlivens the microcosm shall transcend as a free and winged soul to follow the raven beyond the western gate where the dragon rides the quarter, marching in procession with the Grail to equinox. Even as the 7-veiled goddess brings death unto death, so shall the epic of the self-borns be soon adorning, when the seekers shall be masters, and the lifeblood shall be light. And so mote it be. And on that note, we shall close for this evening, and be sure to tune in next week when we'll be back with another revelation of the Hermetic mysteries. And until then, good magic and good evening.